What's up, everybody? It's bshowbrian. It's summertime. Kids are going to camp, and you know what that means. Some hockey-masked maniac is just waiting in the woods for someone to step out of line. Recently, according to TVLine.com, Adrian King, the original final girl of the Friday the 13th franchise, teased a release window for Peacock's Crystal Lake prequel series. Now, not a lot is known about this series so far, but she did tweet out hashtag 2024. It remains to be seen whether she's going to be a producer or make a cameo, but this concept really has me salivating because we haven't seen a Friday the 13th project since, 2011? The first question I have is, when is this going to be set? Because Jason, if it is truly a prequel to the original, Jason died, I believe, in the 50s, and that's when all the hijinks at Camp Crystal Lake and Mrs. Voorhees sabotaging and her murderous spree to protect other kids from suffering the same fate as her poor boy, her special boy. We were talking about this on Break the Apocalypse podcast a few weeks ago, which you should check out if you haven't yet, that I miss 50s nostalgia from 80s movies like Back to the Future, where you see malt shops, you see classic cars, the big bubbly ones that look like they're made out of pieces of candy. And I love those cars. I love that style. I like that era. And I think it'd be really cool if it was set in the 50s. We've seen other movies and other series like American Horror Story set things in the 80s. And it always seems like some, millennial or Gen Z interns watched some 80s movies and produced what they thought were the 80s. I don't want to see a lot of neon, although neon is cool. I want to see like wood paneling. I want to see ashtrays. I want to see stuff that really reminds me of the 1980s if it is going to be set in the 80s, or I want to see stuff from the 50s. So 50s would be cool. I think 80s would make more sense because then if they do another series, they could set that modern day if they wanted to, sort of like the Platinum Dunes remake did. They could go a number of different places with that, but I think it'd be cool to set it in the 50s. Setting it in the 50s would offer some opportunities to get away from some of the stupid tropes we've seen recently where, the cell phone just doesn't magically have reception in this area. Well, you don't have cell phones in 1956. One of the things that made Friday the 13th really great was you had this bubbly group of kids and they were out in the woods. There was no one that was there to protect them. They were cut off from the world, and there was a sort of isolated setting, I should say, for them to be in. And there was no way they could call out. There was no way they could pick up a cell phone. There was no way that there was an emergency alert system. For those of you who don't know this, Amber Alerts and missing kid alerts did not exist back in the day. It wasn't just cell phones. Parents didn't know where the hell their kids were at.
The television stations had to make a commercial reminding our parents that they had kids.
Taking it back to that and outside of the helicopter mom, cell phone, technology, instant communication aspect could be really interesting whether it's set in the 80s or in the 50s. Now, one of the things that this could offer us is a chance to finally see not more of a history just between Pamela and Jason, but something the fans have been wanting to see since part 6, and that's Elias Voorhees, Jason's elusive father. There's a scene that was scrapped from Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. The caretaker is reburying the coffin and the site, and a man walks up and has a conversation with the gravekeeper, slips him some money, and we realize that Elias Voorhees, Jason's father, has been paying the caretaker to keep up Jason's grave. It was scrapped. No conversation or mention or whisper has ever been done again of Elias Voorhees. And this could be a very interesting opportunity to do something different and further explore Jason. You could see Elias, where Jason gets his demented roots. It's not just from his mother. Maybe it's his father. Maybe his father was a serial killer. Maybe his father was a nasty guy. Maybe Pamela goes to Crystal Lake and she's hiding from him. I don't know. I'm not the writer of the series or the showrunner. Run with it. It could allow you to get around not having Pamela or Jason in action, because honestly, if it's just a slow build to when these terrible things start happening, when Jason dies or if Pamela goes a little batty, obviously you could make her kill people throughout, and it's like almost like a sleepaway camp type 2 sort of thing where Pamela's killing people but also still trying to keep up appearances at the camp. But it could also be a way to allow those characters to naturally, Jason and Pamela, come into their own as villains while taking the heat off of them and telling the story along the way with a guy like Elias going around doing terrible, unspeakable things. Another interesting aspect to this, Adrian King, who, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, was Friday the 13th's original final girl, Alice, is involved in this project somehow. Is she going to be a producer, or is she going to be in the series? It's yet to be determined, at least publicly. So if that's the case, how do you make that happen? Do you make her an older Alice telling the story after the fact, sort of like Winona Ryder's character in Edward Scissorhands, who's recounting the tale, and then Jason comes and finishes her off? That wouldn't make much sense if it's a sequel to the original, and if they keep the continuity with the rest of the franchise somewhat, because, spoiler alert, Alice ends up dying in part 2. That being said, having her come on as a cameo in a different role and rebooting the franchise with a new beginning, hopefully not like part 5, as much as I like that movie, the fact that I conjured up New Beginning talking about this has me a little bit reluctant to even suggest such a thing, but it could offer a new beginning. She could be a counselor, she could be someone involved. Hell, Adrian King is old enough to where she could be Pamela Voorhees. To take a character who was once the original final girl, the original hero of the story, and have her play Mrs. Voorhees, that'd be really fun. Now, the more I think about that, the more I like it, so we'll see how this goes. I wonder if they're going to start with Jason's drowning and do flashbacks of their relationship, or do maybe episode 1, episode 2 with little Jason and what happens to him. Only time will tell. Below in the comment section, let me know what you want to see out of this series on Peacock and what you're expecting. I'm bshowbrian. That's it for tonight, and hopefully we'll be getting more information soon.